Welcome back to Crafted Nest, the little corner where forgotten things are reborn into treasures. Here, every jar, chair, or teacup carries a second story, one that blooms in your garden with color, charm, and wonder. Today, we'll wander through 23 DIY garden decor ideas, each crafted from thrifted finds and upcycled surprises, ready to transform your outdoor space into a haven of creativity. Take a breath, settle in, and let each idea remind you that beauty lives in the simplest gestures. And before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Crafted Nest and ring the bell so you'll never miss another spark of inspiration. In a quiet corner of the garden, an old lantern begins a new chapter. Once forgotten on a dusty thrift store shelf, its metal frame now glimmers faintly in the morning sun. Suspended from a tree branch, the lantern no longer holds light. It holds life. Inside, resting like a secret treasure, is a porcelain teacup and saucer, slightly tilted, filled with seeds waiting for their guests. At first, the garden is still. Then, a small flutter breaks the silence. A sparrow lands gracefully on the saucer, testing its weight before dipping its beak into feast. Soon more follow. Their soft chirps weave a gentle melody with the breeze, turning the garden into a stage for simple joy. The beauty of this creation lies not in complexity, but in intention. With only adhesive, a rope, and 2 forgotten objects, you craft something that bridges old and new, rustic and delicate. The lantern, once a vessel for light, becomes a vessel for giving. The teacup, once a companion for conversation, now invites the company of wings. Each morning, with a warm cup of tea in your own hands, you watch the ritual unfold. Birds gather, seeds scatter, sunlight filters through leaves. It is a reminder that joy often arrives in small gestures that ask us to slow down, to notice, to share. The Lantern Bird Feeder is more than a project. It is a story of transformation, a symbol of care, and a gentle call to see possibility in what seems worn. Next time you pass by an old lantern, don't see rust. See a chance to invite music into your garden, one teacup at a time. Sometimes beauty doesn't rest in what we add, but in what we allow to grow. Imagine finding an old wooden frame, its paint chipped, its glass long gone. To most, it's nothing more than forgotten clutter. But with gentle hands and a bit of imagination, it becomes a canvas for life itself. Begin by stretching a fine mesh across the empty frame, sturdy enough to hold but open enough to breathe. Into its weave, you press fresh moss, soft, damp, and alive with hidden whispers of the forest. The moss settles in like a green carpet, filling each crevice with quiet resilience. Then, one by one, you tuck tiny succulents into spaces. Some are plump like little stones, others sharp as stars, each carrying its own character. As days pass, the frame transforms. Moss thickens, succulents root deeper, and the entire piece begins to shift with subtle rhythms of growth. Sunlight plays across the leaves, shadows dance on wood, and what was once a forgotten object now pulses with life. This project isn't about quick results. It's about patience. The kind of patience that lets you witness how nature stitches herself into unexpected places. Each time you miss the plants, you nurture more than greenery. You nurture calm. Each glance reminds you that even the simplest frame can hold something extraordinary. Not a picture, not a painting, but a living story. On your garden wall, this planter becomes both art and ritual. It is a window into slow beauty, a tapestry of green that whispers to anyone who passes. Life finds its way, even in the unlikeliest of frames. At the edge of a garden path, where shadows stretch long in the afternoon, a small patch of magic begins to bloom, not from seeds, but from porcelain teacups that once cradled morning tea and quiet conversations. Turned upside down, their fragile shapes now wear coats of whimsy, painted red with white polka dots, sky blue kissed with golden stars, earthy tones that echo the forest floor. Each cup is fixed carefully on a slender wooden dowel, standing tall like mushrooms in a fairy tale. Together, they form a cluster that seems alive with stories, as if tiny woodland creatures might gather beneath them when no one is watching. The garden, suddenly, feels less like a backyard and more like a page from a storybook. The process is simple, yet joyful. Gather mismatched teacups from the thrift store, the ones too chipped to hold tea, but too charming to be forgotten. Paint them boldly, letting your brush dance with imagination. Seal them with waterproof spray so that sun and rain cannot steal their color. Then press their stems into the soil, beside a flower bed, beneath a tree, or along a winding path. What grows isn't just decoration, it's delight. Children may believe fairies hide under the caps. Adults may pause, smile, and ask where they came from, only be surprised by the answer: your own hands. In these tiny sculptures, there is laughter, creativity, and a gentle reminder that wonder does not need to be grand. Sometimes it takes only a chipped cup, a splash of paint, and the courage to see not what something was, but what it could become. In the quietest part of the garden, beneath the wide arms of an old tree, a village begins to grow. It is not built by architects or machines, but by hands guided by imagination. Moss spreads across the ground like a soft green carpet, becoming the foundation of a world both tiny and infinite. Here, toy houses once forgotten in a dusty box are given new lives. Rested gently on their mossy beds, they look as though they have always belonged, each one carrying the charm of simplicity. Around them, fences rise from broken twigs, tied together with thin wire and twine. Their imperfections are what make them beautiful, as if the fairies themselves built them with patience and care. Winding paths take shape from fragments of tile and colorful glass. They twist and turn, inviting any wandering spirit to follow. A pebble here, a shard there, each piece finds its place in this miniature world. As sunlight filters through the leaves, tiny shadows shift, making the village feel alive, as though something unseen moves just beyond your gaze. The beauty of a fairy garden is not only in what it shows, but in what it suggests. Children may crouch low, eyes wide, waiting for a glimpse of wings or tiny footsteps. Adults, too, may pause, feeling, if only for a moment, that wonder is not lost to age. This is more than decoration. It is a reminder that enchantment can be built with small things, found things, things we once overlooked. And in its quiet presence, the fairy garden whispers. Sometimes the most magical worlds are only inches tall, but they awaken something vast inside us. At the edge of a garden path, where sunlight lingers in golden warmth, stands a wicker chair, one that held people in laughter and conversation. But now its seat cradles something new, soil-rich and dark, alive with possibility. From its woven frame spills a cascade of green vines, their tendrils slipping through the gaps like lace unfurling in the breeze. Bright blossoms, petunias, lobelias, or sweet potato vines, tuck themselves into the soil, stretching toward the sun. Their colors soften the weathered wicker, weaving life into its lines. The chair, once a resting place for the weary, becomes a resting place for roots and petals. Day by day, the plants spill further over the edges, blurring the boundaries between furniture and foliage. What makes this project special isn't its perfection, but its poetry. A wicker chair, fragile in appearance yet strong in spirit, is reborn. No longer relegated to a corner of storage or destined for discard, it rises again as a garden's focal point, charming, unexpected, and alive. In the quiet of morning, you might find yourself sitting nearby with a cup of coffee, watching bees pause at the flowers, their wings catching the light. Or in the stillness of evening, the chair may glow softly under twilight, carrying the fragrance of blossoms into the air. It is a reminder that beauty can be found in reimagining, that objects, like people, can grow beyond the roles they once played. The wicker chair planter is more than decor. It is a conversation between time and nature, a story woven from strands of patience, memory, and bloom. There is a quiet magic in giving old things a chance to bloom again. Imagine a wooden chair, its paint peeling, its seat worn thin from years of use. Once it stood at a dining table, holding laughter, meals, and moments. Now, in a sunny garden corner, it holds something entirely new: life. The seat is replaced by a sturdy basket, filled with rich soil that breathes with promise. From it, flowers emerge, petunias in soft pink, marigolds glowing with golden light, ivy stretching long and free. The blossoms spill over the edges, like laughter overflowing from a full heart. The old chair, no longer a keeper of conversations, becomes a throne for colors and scents. Each passing day, the blooms grow bolder, softening the sharp lines of the chair, wrapping its wooden arms in living lace. The weatherwood doesn't resist. Instead, it holds the plants as though it has been waiting for this moment. What was once ordinary furniture now becomes extraordinary art, a meeting of memory and renewal. In the hush of morning, bees hum over the flowers, and butterflies pause on the petals. By evening, the chair glows gently under the setting sun, casting long shadows on the grass. It is no longer just a chair. It is a story of transformation, of resilience, of finding purpose beyond what was once imagined. The wooden chair floral basket reminds us that beauty is not in perfection, but in reinvention, that what once seemed finished can still begin again. And in your garden, it stands as a quiet celebration of nature, of memory, of the joy that blooms when we dare to see with new eyes. Sometimes the most ordinary tools hide extraordinary possibilities. In the back of a thrift store, a metal colander waits, its handle worn, its surface scratched from years in the kitchen, once it drained pasta or rinsed vegetables, but today, under the open sky, it becomes a cradle for life, lined with coconut fiber or moss. The colander forms a perfect nest for soil. Its tiny holes, once meant for water in a sink, now give plants the drainage they need to thrive. Into this humble vessel, flowers are placed, petunias, trailing ivy, or perhaps a burst of nasturtiums. As roots settle and stems reach upward, colors spill over the edge, softening the colander's metal with blooms. Hung from chains or rope, it sways gently in the breeze. Each gust stirs the flowers, making them dance like ribbons in the air. Sunlight glints off the colander's worn surface, a reminder of its past, while new leaves whisper of its future. What makes this project charming is not just its beauty, but its balance. Sturdy metal holding fragile petals, kitchen utility meeting garden grace. It is proof that usefulness doesn't end where we think it does. With a shift in perspective, what once belonged indoors now thrives outdoors, repurposed with creativity and care. Each time you look at it, you're reminded that even the most ordinary things can rise again in unexpected ways. The Colander hanging planter is more than decor. It's a conversation between memory and renewal, between what once was and what can still be. And in its gentle sway, it teaches us to see the extraordinary waiting quietly in the everyday. High above the garden, where sunlight filters through branches, a curious creation sways gently in the breeze. At first glance, it looks like a cluster of silver petals circling a basket. But look closer, and you see recycled tuna cans, each one transformed into a tiny dish, brimming with seeds. Once destined for the trash, these humble cans now serve a new purpose: to invite life into the garden. Arranged evenly around a wire basket and secured with sturdy rope, they form a circle that birds cannot resist. Sparrows flutter down, wings shimmering in the light, while finches hop from can to can, their chirps filling the air with song. The beauty of this feeder lies in its simplicity. No complicated tools, no expensive parts. Only a few cans, some wire, and imagination. The cans, once symbols of consumption, now become symbols of giving. Each one offers nourishment, turning an ordinary meal's remains into a feast for nature's guests. As you sit beneath the tree, watching the birds dart and dive, you realize it is not only the feeder that has been renewed. The garden feels more alive, more connected, more in tune with the small rhythms of life. What once was waste now holds joy, and what once was silent now sings. The tuna and bird feeder is a gentle reminder. Transformation doesn't always require grandeur. Sometimes it is as simple as taking what is left behind and letting it serve again. In the flutter of wings and the music of chirps, you'll find proof that even the smallest gestures can bring the world back to life. On a garden bench, in the gentle glow of afternoon light, rests a drawer no longer meant for spoons or papers. Its wood is weathered, its corners softened by time. Yet now, instead of holding forgotten things, it cradles life. Within its shallow frame, soil breeds and succulents, plump, spiky, and jewel-toned, reach toward the sun. But it isn't just the plants that make it beautiful. Along the front of the drawer, shards of broken tile and porcelain form a mosaic. Blues like the sea, greens like the forest, earthy tones like clay. Each fragment was once whole, then shattered, and now gathered again into something unexpectedly complete. The light catches on each piece, making the planter glimmer, like a patchwork memory reborn. Succulents thrive here because they ask for so little, just a bit of light, a sip of water, and patience. As they root themselves deeper, the drawer itself seems to root into the garden, becoming part of its rhythm. Each morning, the plants glow softly with dew, and each evening, their colors deepen under the fading sky. This creation tells two stories, one of resilience and one of reinvention. The drawer, once overlooked, becomes a vessel of beauty. The broken tiles, once discarded, become a canvas of light. Together, they whisper that brokenness is not an ending, but an opening for something new. When you pause to admire it, you feel both peace and possibility. For in the Mosaic planter, you see not just succulents and soil, you see the art gathering fragments and letting them shine again. Once made to shield us from rain, an umbrella can also cradle sunlight. Picture an old umbrella, its fabric faded but its frame still strong. Open wide and turn upside down in a garden bed. Instead of sheltering from storms, it now holds soil and seeds, ready to bloom into something new. The process is almost playful. Line the canopy with garden fabric or burlap, so the soil stays in place. Fill it with earth rich and dark, then scatter in flowers, petunias, marigolds, or sweet alyssum. As the roots take hold, the umbrella begins to look less like a tool for rain and more like a fountain of color. Blossoms spill over the edges, their petals trailing like streams of sunshine, cascading from the fabric folds. The handle, once held in a hand, is now planted deep into the earth, steadying this unexpected garden. It stands like a sculpture, whimsical and proud, drawing smiles from anyone who passes by. In the morning, bees drift between the blooms. In the afternoon, the flowers sway with the breeze. By evening, the umbrella glows softly, a symbol of optimism standing tall against the setting sun. What was once ordinary has become extraordinary. The umbrella, an object of cloudy skies, is reborn as a vessel of light. It tells a story of transformation, how even the simplest item can bloom when seen with new eyes. And in your garden, it reminds you, beauty doesn't always come from grand designs. Sometimes it grows from laughter, from play, from the courage to let something become what it was never meant to be. At the foot of the garden fence, a pair of boots rests. Their soles are worn, their leather cracked, their laces frayed. Once they carried footsteps across fields, pavements, and perhaps even puddles. Now, instead of journeys, they hold something still, soil, roots, and the quiet beginnings of bloom. From inside these weathered shoes, flowers spill forth. Marigolds shine golden like captured sunlight, while succulents nestle deep, their forms steady and calm. Trailing vines wander out through untied laces, softening the edges of leather with their green touch. What once carried life forward now carries life upward. There is something grounding about this transformation. The boots, marked by time, do not hide their history. They embrace it, allowing blossoms to rise from every crease and scar. In the morning, dew clings to the petals and drips gently down the leather. In the afternoon, bees hover at the blooms, turning worn shoes into a bustling corner of life. This project is more than charming decoration. It is poetry, a reminder that usefulness doesn't end when one purpose fades. Objects, like people, can be reborn into roles more beautiful than we imagined. A boot no longer meant for walking becomes a vessel for color, fragrance, and joy. And each time you pass by, you may smile, because these boots whisper softly. Even the most traveled paths can bloom again. And sometimes the most unexpected places become the richest soil for something new to grow. In the hush of a garden afternoon, a sound rises softly above the silence, the gentle trickle of water meeting water. At the center of this quiet scene stands a ceramic bowl, once used for mixing, now reborn as a fountain. Its glaze glimmers in the sunlight, reflecting sky and leaves, while within it, a hidden pump keeps the water moving, alive. Smooth river stones rest at the bottom, grounding the bowl with their earthy weight. Around it, moss and blossoms lean close, as if listening to the fountain song. The water spills in steady rhythm, never hurried, never loud, just a gentle murmur that fills the air with calm. Birds notice first. A sparrow flutters down, perching on a rim to sip. Soon, butterflies hover nearby, drawn to the shimmer. And you 2. Find yourself pausing longer than you meant to, listening. What began as a simple bowl has become a sanctuary. This project asks for little, just a ceramic bowl, a small pump, a few stones. But what it gives is far greater. It invites reflection. It cools the warm air, softens the noise of the world, and reminds us that beauty often lies in small, flowing gestures. Each time you pass, the fountain feels both the same and new, familiar in its rhythm, surprised in the way light and shadow play upon its ripples. It does not demand attention. Instead, it offers presence, a steady reminder to breathe, to listen, to be still. The ceramic bowl fountain is not just decor. It is poetry in motion, a quiet heartbeat for the garden, a gentle echo of how even the simplest things, when given purpose, can create peace. As the sun sinks low and the garden shifts into twilight, a new kind of light begins to bloom. Small flames flicker inside glass cups and jars. Ordinary vessels once meant for water or wine, now reborn as lanterns of warmth. Placed along a pathway or nestled between flower beds, they glow like tiny lighthouses guiding footsteps into evening. Each holder tells a story. One glass still carries the faint curve of a pattern once admired at the dinner table. Another cradles a pressed flower beneath its base, glowing gently as a flame above casts its shadow. Some are mismatched, chipped at the rim, imperfect, but together they shine, turning flaws into poetry. The glow is soft, never overpowering. It dances across petals and leaves, across wooden fences and stone paths. In that golden shimmer, the garden feels different, more intimate, more alive. You pause not only to see but to feel. The warmth of flame, the hush of night settling, the reminder that beauty can be born from simplicity. This project asks almost nothing, just a candle, a glass, and a spark. Yet it offers so much. It transforms a garden from daylight stage into evening sanctuary. It brings people closer, drawing them to gather around the quiet flames, to share stories under their light. And in each flicker, there is an echo of time slowing, of ordinary objects made extraordinary, of the power of light to soften even the darkest corners. The glass candle holders are more than decoration. They are small beacons of comfort, reminding us that even the smallest glow can change the way we see the night. Beneath your feet, the garden hides a story, not just soil and grass, but stones that shimmer with memory and light. Each stepping stone carries fragments, broken dishes, scattered marbles, shards of glass, pieces that once seemed lost, now gathered into something whole. Placed along a garden path, they transform walking into discovery. As you step, the sunlight shifts across the mosaics, scattering colors that dance like rainbows. A marble catches a morning sun, glowing blue like water. A porcelain shard gleams white, sharp yet beautiful. Together, they form patterns, circles, flowers, or abstract swirls, that invite the eye to linger and the heart to pause. Children trace the stones with their toes, marveling at the way light bends inside each fragment. Guests slow their steps, curious, bending down to admire the artistry. And you, too, feel a quiet joy each time your foot meets the path, reminded that beauty can be found in the broken, if only we choose to see it. The process is as meaningful as the result. Mixing cement, pressing each shard into place, arranging marbles with care. It is a meditation in patience. What was once shattered becomes whole again. What was once discarded becomes a guide. With each step, these stones remind us life is not only about moving forward, but also about noticing what lies beneath. The mosaic pathway doesn't just lead to the garden. It leads into a reflection that even fragments, when placed with love, can light the way. In the dappled light of a garden bed, where moss spreads thick and shadows play gently across the soil, a little grove of glass mushrooms begins to rise. They are not born from spores or rain, but from imagination, from soda bottle necks and forgotten glass bowls. Each stem is anchored deep into the earth, sturdy and clear, while the bowls rest upside down as caps, painted in colors that recall fairy tales. One gleams crimson with white speckles, another glows sky blue with silver stars, and yet another shines in earthy browns that mimic the forest floor. When the sun reaches them, the glass refracts light into tiny glimmers, as if the mushrooms themselves are alive with quiet magic. Creating them is simple but joyful. Bottlenecks, once meant to hold soda, now hold stories. Glass bowls, once waiting in cupboards, now find themselves rooted in soil. With paint and patience, they transform into sculptures that make the garden feel like a place whispered about in bedtime tales. Children pause here. Certain fairies might be hiding underneath. Adults, too, cannot help but smile, drawn in by the unexpected beauty of glass and color living side by side with earth and green. These mushrooms don't just decorate. They awaken something playful, reminding us that wonder is never far away. Every time you pass this little cluster, you see more than recycled materials. You see possibility. You see light captured in glass, joy painted on simple forms, and the truth that imagination can make even the humblest objects bloom with life. The bottle and bowl mushrooms are not just ornaments. They are stories rooted in soil, inviting you to believe, if only for a moment, in magic. On the side of the garden wall, where once there was only blank wood, light now dances in 1,000 directions. Broken pieces of mirror, gathered in place of intention, form a mosaic that catches the sun. Each shard reflects a fragment of the world. Blue sky in one, green leaves in another, a flash of flowers in the next. What was once shattered now becomes whole again, not in perfection, but in possibility. The pieces do not hide their edges. They celebrate them. Together they create patterns like stars, waves, or constellations. And when sunlight moves across them, the wall becomes alive, scattering glimmers that shift with every breeze. To build it is simple yet thoughtful. Collect old mirrors, ones too cracked to use. Break them further, carefully, into shapes that can be arranged. Fix them onto wood or stone with strong adhesive, letting the fragments fall into patterns of your own design. The result is not just decoration, but reflection, literally and figuratively. Standing before it, you see not only your garden, but yourself, fragmented and multiplied. The mirrors remind us that beauty does not require wholeness. Even broken things can shine. Even discarded objects can return as art, carrying new meaning with every reflection. At dusk, when the last light of day falls across the wall, the mosaic glows softly, holding the sun a little longer. It becomes a backdrop for the garden, a silent storyteller, a reminder that what is cracked need not be hidden. It can be transformed into something luminous. The broken mirror wall art is more than a project. It is a conversation between loss and renewal, light and shadow, fragility and strength. And in every shard, there is a spark of wonder waiting to be seen. When rain comes, most see only gray skies and hurried drops. But with a rain chain, those same drops become music. Linked together from cups, buckets, or strainers, the chain catches water as it falls from the roof, guiding it downward in a graceful rhythm. Each vessel fills, tips, and spills into the next, like notes in a song composed by the storm. At the top, rain begins its journey, quick, restless, eager. By the time it reaches the first cup, it slows, pooling briefly before spilling into one below. The sound is soft, like a whisper on tin, a gentle reminder that even rushing water can learn to linger. As it descends through each link, the water sparkles in sunlight, turning the storm into something almost celebratory. At the base, a stone bowl or ceramic basin waits, collecting the flow. The surface ripples with each drop, mirroring the sky above. Birds may pause to sip, and the garden breathes more deeply refreshed. What once was simply rainwater now becomes performance of light and sound, a dance that softens even the gloomiest day. Creating a rain chain is both simple and inventive. A few hooks, some recycled cups or buckets, and a bit of imagination are all it takes. And when the rain arrives, it reveals the chain's hidden beauty. More than functional, the rain chain is symbolic. It reminds us that what falls does not have to rush away. It can pause, sing, and shine. And in that melody, the garden gains not just water, but wonder. In a quiet patch of the garden, something unexpected rises. A tower made not of stone or wood, but of plates. Ceramic and porcelain, mismatched in color and pattern. Stacked carefully one atop another until they reach toward the sky. One set for dinners and gatherings. These plates now host butterflies and morning dew. The process begins simply. Each plate is drilled at its center, then threaded gently onto a sturdy rod. One by one, they slide into place. A floral plate from a thrift shop, a plain white one from forgotten set, a patterned dish carrying echoes of past meals. Together, they form a vertical sculpture, delicate yet strong, whimsical yet grounded. When sunlight touches the tower, its surfaces shimmer with reflections. Birds pause on the edges to sip from droplets left by rain. Butterflies circle, drawn to the colors that shine like petals stacked tall. Even the wind plays its part, humming softly through the open spaces, giving the tower a quiet voice of its own. This creation is not only decor, it is a conversation between past and present. Plates once meant for tables now gather in the garden, serving not food but beauty. Their imperfections only add to the story. A chip, a faded pattern, a scratch, all woven into a new purpose. Standing before it, you cannot help but smile. The ceramic tower is playful and graceful, a reminder that creativity asks us to see not only what objects were, but what they can become. And as it catches light in life, it teaches us to look upward, to imagine, to rise. As evening folds into night, the garden changes its voice. The chatter of birds grows softer, and the breeze turns gentler. Then, almost like fireflies captured in glass, tiny lights begin to appear. Mason jars, once used for preserves and pickles, now hang gracefully from branches and beams, each holding a flicker of warmth. Inside each jar, a small candle rests, sometimes set in sand, sometimes nestled among smooth pebbles. The flame glows softly, sending shadows dancing across the grass and flowers. The jars themselves glimmer, reflecting light in ways that feel both rustic and magical. One jar may glow brighter, another dimmer, but together they form a constellation of earthbound stars. The charm lies not in perfection, but in presence. Hung from wires or twine, the jars sway gently with the wind. Some rest high in the branches, others line a pathway, guiding steps with quiet radiance. Guests who wander through the garden at dusk pause, captivated by the gentle glow. And you, too, find yourself lingering longer, comforted by the soft light that makes the garden feel both intimate and infinite. This project asks only for jars, a flame, and a bit of imagination. Yet, what it creates is atmosphere, an invitation to slow down, to share stories, to listen to night. The mason jar lanterns are not only decoration. They are memory makers, weaving moments of laughter, reflection, and connection under their glow. In their flicker, you see more than candles. You see a reminder that even the simplest vessels can hold light, and that in darkness, even small flames can transform the world around them. In a quiet garden corner, where vines search for something to climb, an old bicycle wheel finds new life. Once it carried journeys down dusty roads, its spokes humming with motion. Now, fixed upright against a wooden post, it stands still, offering its frame as a ladder for green to rise. Ivy curls first, its tendrils weaving gently through the spokes. Then morning glories follow, painting the metal with blossoms of violet and blue. Day by day, the wheel disappears beneath a tapestry of leaves and petals, until what was once rusted silver becomes a living sculpture. There is poetry in this transformation. A wheel built to turn endlessly now rests in stillness. Yet its purpose continues. It holds life. It guides growth. It carries beauty. Each leaf that climbs it is like a small step forward, reminding us that movement is not always about distance. It can also be about reaching upward. The trellis asks for little. A wheel too bent for roads, a sturdy post, a bit of soil and patience. But what it gives is more than support. It gives shape to a garden's rhythm. It invites butterflies to land, bees to hum, and people to pause and wonder how something once forgotten can stand tall again. The bicycle trellis is more than structure. It is story, a reminder that journeys never truly end. They only change. And here, in the stillness of the garden, an old wheel continues its path, not across landscapes, but toward the light. In the corner of a garden, where once an old tire lay forgotten, life now blooms in circles. Its rubber, once spinning endlessly on roads, now rests firmly in the soil, painted in bright colors that greet the eye before the flowers do. Inside, soil breathes and roots stretch, transforming the tire into a vessel of growth. Marigolds rise first, golden and bold, their petals glowing like captured sunlight. Petunias follow, soft in pink and purple, their fragrance drifting gently on the air. Together, they spill over the edges, softening the tire's hard lines with cascades of color. The contrast is striking, dark rubber against fragile petals, worn edges holding vibrant life. Yet this balance is what makes the flower bed beautiful. It tells a story of renewal, of taking what was once discarded and letting it cradle something delicate and alive. Children may trace the painted patterns on the tire, laughing at its cheerful hues. Visitors pause to admire the ingenuity, surprised at how something so ordinary can appear so extraordinary when filled with blossoms. And each time you water the flowers, are reminded that beauty often grows where we least expect it. This project is simple, affordable, and endlessly creative. One tire becomes a single flower bed. Several stacked together create tiers, rising like steps of color. With each bloom, the garden expands not only in sight, but in spirit. The tire flower bed is more than a planter. It is a circle of transformation, a reminder that every ending can hold a beginning, and even the most rugged things can become keepers of grace. Against the rough surface of the garden wall, colors begin to bloom, not from paint, but from hundreds of tiny circles. Bottle caps, once twisted open and tossed aside, now fit together like puzzle pieces, forming patterns that speak of patience and play. Each cap carries a story. A green one from a soda shared on a hot day, a blue from mineral water, a red from a glass bottle long emptied. Alone, they are nothing special. But arranged side by side, they become art. A sunflower sprawling across the wall, a tree stretching upward, or perhaps an abstract swirl of colors that shifts with each glance. The mosaic glows brightest in sunlight. The caps catch and reflect light, their colors sharp against the weathered wall. From a distance, the design looks like paint. Up close, the small details reveal the care behind every placement. Visitors stop, surprised to see waste reborn into wonder. Children run their hands along the caps, following the patterns like a secret trail. Creating it is simple, yet meditative. Caps are collected patiently, washed, and sorted by color. With adhesive and vision, they find their place. Slowly, an empty wall becomes alive, no longer blank, but filled with story and imagination. This project is more than decoration. It is transformation. It reminds us that even the smallest discards, when gathered with purpose, can make something lasting. The bottle cap mosaic wall whispers a lesson. Beauty doesn't always come from grand things. Sometimes it comes from the tiniest pieces, pieced together with care, turning what was thrown away into something unforgettable. As twilight settles and shadows lengthen across the garden, glass bottles begin to glow with fire, once cradling wine at a dinner table. These bottles now stand tall as lanterns, holding oil and flame with quiet elegance. Their dark glass glimmers, each flame dancing like a heartbeat against the night. The process is both simple and enchanting. A wine bottle, rinsed clean and weighted with sand or pebbles for stability, becomes a vessel. A metal wick holder rests at the neck, drawing oil from within. With a spark, the flame comes alive, steady, golden, and strong. Arranged along a fence or pathway, the bottles transform the garden into a place of warmth and gathering. The beauty of these torches lies not only in their light, but in their symbolism. A bottle once filled with celebration now carries memory forward, illuminating evenings with the same spirit of connection. The glow is soft, never harsh, and the flames sway gently with a breeze, painting shifting patterns of light across flowers, stone, and soil. Guests are drawn to the glow, pausing to admire the ingenuity. Conversations stretch longer beneath their light. Laughter rises, and the night feels less like an ending and more like continuation of joy. Even in solitude, their flicker soothes, offering comfort against the dark. The wine bottle torch lanterns are more than recycled objects. They are a reminder that beauty is not extinguished when purpose changes. Instead, it burns anew, carrying warmth into places once quiet. And in the soft firelight, the garden becomes not just a space of growth, but gathering, memory, and light reborn.